Hello, welcome to the X Factor podcast. I'm your host, Charles Epstein, and I am joined by today's co-host, Dr. Genevieve Bartuski, internationally recognized psychologist, chartered in forensic and cyber psychology. Genevieve, I think this is our third podcast. It may be our fourth podcast. So I think I'm going to split the difference and say that it's our 3.5 pod. It feels more than 3. Not more than 4. So can we agree to that?
That works for me.
We're good. Okay. Great to see you. Great to see you.
Good to see you too.
Is that a real background?
No, it's not. But a couple years ago, I went to Venice and I went to the Aqua Alta bookstore, and this just reminded me of it. So I was like, oh, I'll use that today.
Right. I'm always fooled. I don't know what it is. I'm always fooled by virtual backgrounds. I got to get better at that. You'd think after all these years. Anyway, so if you would introduce our audience, today's special guest.
Yes.
Who's coming in and out of focus, but we're going to leave it to you, Rachel, to bring this entire conversation into focus.
Yes. So today, I'm very happy Rachel is joining us. So she is Dr. Rachel Wood. She's an advisor. She's a consultant. And she's a speaker who's fluent at the intersection of AI and mental health. So she and I have a lot in common. I'm really excited to meet her. Well, I've met her before this, but you guys know what I mean. And then she is the founder of the AI Mental Health Collective, and she culminates a community of therapists, technologists, researchers, industry leaders, and everybody's focused on the impacts of AI. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you.
I was excited you're here.
Thank you so much for having me, both of you. It's lovely to be here. I'm looking forward to our time together.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much for taking the time. Really do appreciate it. I want to ask you a little bit more about the AI Mental Health Collective in a moment. But I was going through your background, and you received a BA in music education, then an MA in counseling, and a PhD in cyber psychology. So I'm curious, how does one go from music education to counseling work? If you can connect those dots for us.
Kind of one of those roads like this. I've been a musician all my life. I've been a vocalist my entire life. And so that was kind of a natural thing for me to go study in my undergrad, was to study voice. And then as I was a professional vocalist for a while. I was also teaching voice. And as I was doing that and sitting with people, I thought, I really enjoy the aspect of this that is deeper than just talking about voice, but like really kind of getting into the heart of our voice, how we approach things, how we show up in the world. And that kind of then gently led me down to, I want to get a master's degree to become a therapist. So I moved into that and have a small private practice still that I do. And then kind of moving into the PhD for me was looking at the way that AI is actually shifting the relational bedrock of society in pretty interesting ways, and the impact that it's having on mental health, and the way that people are kind of adopting it as more than a tool, but as a friend and a colleague, and all these different things. So that, Charles, is a bit of my progression academically.
Excellent. And musically, who you influenced by? Do you still do music? Do you still sing?
I do. I still sing. My influence, I was trained classically. So I always have kind of this background of influence of, even very classical pieces. And now I like pretty much anything, jazz to pop to, pretty much anything, honestly. Not hard rock, maybe. Yeah.
Not hard rock?
Not
you
hard
don't do
rock.
Not Deep Purple, Metallica? That's a little
No.
bit too much of a stretch.
Got it.
Okay. Although I have to tell you, I hate to go down any kind of rabbit hole when we're doing these very focused conversations, but and don't ask me how I fell into this, but long story short, somebody sent me a YouTube video. If you remember Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet from back in the day. Am I dating myself? This is happening with greater frequency, and it's incredibly alarming. And I may have to ask the producer and editor to extract this from our conversation. But you know what? The hell with it. They actually were sort of in the Sinatra big band standards mold. And they actually did a new arrangement of a Soundgarden song.
Ooh.
So it's
Oh.
always interesting when you get those genre
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
mashups.
Oh, I love that.
You,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
so I'm throwing down the gauntlet, and I'm looking forward for a little Metallica, Pearl Jam from you. Who knows? Black Sabbath. We'll see.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, really do appreciate you coming on. As I said, I just want to ask you a little bit more about the AI Mental Health Collective. What's that about?
Yeah, so essentially, I think that this moment in time, we desperately need robust cross-discipline dialogue. And so that's why I really created the AI Mental Health Collective. It's a lot of clinicians and therapists, since that's my personal wheelhouse. And so I'm cultivating conversation around what AI is, how it's influencing mental health, influencing
Mm-hmm.
clients, and then, we really need to be talking with technologists. How do we build the guidelines and guardrails to make AI as safe and ethical as we can? And so, really, it's taking researchers and industry leaders and all of these people and bringing them together so that we can hopefully shape the future that is what we're hoping, the future we're hoping for.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. The focus of today's conversation is the concept of ambivalence, something that you guys brought up in our pre-production call. It was really kind of an interesting conversation, particularly its role in AI adoption. To a non-clinician such as myself, ambivalence means having mixed feelings, ambiguity, or in extreme cases, cognitive dissonance. But to the both of you, which is to say clinicians, it
Mm-hmm.
has a different meaning. So, Rachel, what in your world does ambivalence mean, and what does it look like? And Genevieve, please feel free to weigh in on that.
Of
Yes.
course.
To get a little bit technical with the definition, it would be the simultaneous experience of um, cognitive, emotional, and let me say it again. I hope that we can cut that out. If not, then we're just going to roll with this again.
Well, look, if I'm not cutting out my retro
If you're
reference,
not
which is
cutting that,
deeply embarrassing, no, we're
listen,
rolling with this,
I'll
Rachel.
take it. Okay. It's the simultaneous experience
This
of
is an equal opportunity embarrassment situation.
For
Go ahead.
everybody.
every
Yes.
Everybody gets it. Keeps us all grounded. It's the simultaneous experience of opposing cognitive or emotional orientations towards something.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is I feel equally nervous and hopeful or excited about something. So it's really kind of a tense place to be. There's tension because you're holding space for two opposing orientations.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, Genevieve,
Any
I know you have, I'd love to hear your addition in there.
Yeah, I mean, I thought you said it very well. I mean, it's basically having two opposite ideas at the same time. And it's very uncomfortable for people because it's like, how can I love this and hate this at the same time?
Yeah.
And I think just in general, I think it's hard for people to understand that two opposite things can be true at the same time. And so it creates that cognitive dissonance. And, people experience this in everything, not just in AI. If, you're making a decision or, like this car versus that car, I mean, it comes up all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
but speaking of AI, because obviously that's the nature of our podcast.
Hmm.
How does one deal with ambivalence as far as AIs, particularly if we're interested in promoting AI adoption, Rachel? So what's the approach? What are first of all, what does it look like? What are people feeling? What are these opposing thoughts that people are carrying around in their head when they're dealing with this sense of ambivalence with respect specifically to AI?
Oh yeah. There's so many things here. So, you hear kind of from the top down, hey, we're going to roll out this AI initiative. Everybody's going to adopt it. Let's all get on board and here it is. So then you have, employees and team members who are likely thinking, okay, this could be helpful or productive or help, ease my maybe administrative load. And so I'm curious and I'm maybe hopeful or excited about it. And simultaneously, they may be thinking, okay, how am I going to learn? Like, what kind of training is going to be in place? Because I already have a lot on my plate. And now I need to learn another new technology. And so how am I going to learn this? When am I going to learn this? What does this mean for my vocational identity? Like, is AI going to come in and take over some core aspects of what I do in such a way that my vocational identity starts to shift? And if so, that might feel a little scary even. And, what about, or am I somehow training this to take over my own job? There's all of these thoughts that we have inside of us that we're not quite sure about. So I would say that's part of it. Genevieve,
Mhm.
what else would you say are thoughts floating around?
Yeah, no, it's definitely all of that. The other thing I would add is AI going to add more to my plate? People don't think about that because when you streamline everything, it's like, okay, it's going to make it faster and easier. But we have a tendency that when things are faster and easier, we start to take on more. And so that's another concern that people have is like, okay, well, now that AI can do this really fast, does this mean I'm going to have instead of, I don't know, 7 cases or whatever they're working on, 7 tasks? Am I going to have like 15 that I have to mentally manage now?
Yeah.
So that's another big concern about AI.
Yeah.
You know, by the way, you were both quote unquote cyber psychologists. I shouldn't put that in scare quotes, but there you have it. Obviously,
Yeah, and, PhD in cyber psychology. I'm sorry, in order to stay compliant with my
Hmm.
licensure, I have to say PhD in cyber psychology. I'm
Hmm.
sorry
uh,
to be a stickler about it.
no, no,
No, no,
no, no,
no.
no.
Yeah, because I think that's actually a good thing to bring up because some people don't, because there's so many different mental health
Yeah,
people out there. So I am a psychologist. So I have my doctorate in psychology, and I am chartered through the British Psychological Society in forensic and cyber psychology. So I can use those titles as well.
wow.
And so like Rachel has what? So I know you're a therapist. What is your
So I'm an
license in?
LPC. My
Mm-hmm.
licensure is an LPC, which is a licensed professional counselor, and also all of this is really relative to where you live. Like, we're saying
Mm-hmm.
this in the US, but if I lived in anywhere else,
Mm-hmm.
would call myself it's, something else, but
Right.
being in the States, yeah. Licensed,
It is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's psychologist is a protected title. Even in some people don't know this, but like in 5 states, you can actually get criminal charges.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So, but
Yeah.
it's
Well,
not protected in the UK.
yeah. The reason I ask this is that it's obviously relatively a new
Yeah.
discipline, right?
Hmm.
I'm assuming.
Very new.
Um, One of the overarching goals of this podcast is to bring light to all these issues, the intersection of AI and emotional, employee well-being, mental, behavioral health, readiness, and
Mhm.
all this. So, to the extent that what you do is fairly new, um, how many people are aware that this type of counseling is available? And what have you been seeing as far as the demand for it? Whether it's just individuals, whether it's business leaders, people at the workplace. Rachel.
Yeah, so, for me, actually, my work in cyber psychology is far broader in terms of, I do a lot of speaking, a lot of presenting, a lot of, advising with companies, and so, it really doesn't translate at this point into kind of um, a specialty for my practice. It's more so the way that I really try to raise awareness, bring education, help, companies make strategic decisions. That's how it plays out for me.
Mhm.
Do you find that there is a greater awareness on the business side of things that people are grappling with these issues?
I think as we're seeing companies do AI rollouts and then potentially hitting some bumps with that. They're looking at, okay, is it the AI that's the problem? What are the sticking points here? And so that's when, I would come in such a way to help with some of the sticking points in a more kind of employee well-being relational aspect and helping move through that.
Mhm.
Right. What are you seeing, Genevieve?
I eh, I keep seeing, like, new things every day. And it's very hard to stay focused in this field because there's so much new all the time. In private practice, I'm seeing more people who are utilizing OpenAI as in between sessions. And I don't it's there. They're going to use it. So how do I teach them how to use it safely? Like how do I talk to them about it? How do we bring that into session? So I'm seeing that in clinical work. I'm also seeing, and I just finished submitted the chapter for the Encyclopedia on Cyber Psychology. So I just wrote it on. It's like my dissertation title just went out my brain. Um, Virtual agents and synthetic relationships, and then how some people are attributing so much personhood to AI, not realizing like AI is not smart. It's just a predictive language model. And I think people overestimate it. And we use words like it has like the AI brain and it thinks, and it doesn't really think. It processes and spits stuff out. So, but there's some things there that are surprising me. There is a Reddit thread, and this might be a little off topic, of at least 14,000 comments on it. I'm in love with my AI, and then it goes down an entire rabbit hole of people reinforcing this behavior with each other and actually going to fertility clinics to have babies with the AI.
Oh, get out.
So I'm seeing all of this stuff. I'm also seeing companies that are trying to, companies reach out to me about creating AI that it is safer, and they are taking these things into consideration. They are taking, emergency mental health into consideration and how to get AI not to lead to AI psychosis, with people who are because it'll support some AI systems will support the delusions, and I don't think the developers intended for that to happen. I think now that they're seeing it, they're like, "Oh, we need to fix this." So there's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff going on all the time, and I'm
For,
constantly like, "Ooh, something else shiny to talk about."
yeah. Well, it obviously gives us fodder for this podcast for sure.
Yes.
Rachel, looks like you have something to say.
Oh goodness, Genevieve, yes to all of that. I am seeing all of the same things. This is a lot of what I talk about with clinicians is how are we preparing as mental health professionals to support the growing number, hundreds of millions of people
Mhm,
are using AI for emotional support, for
mhm.
mental health support. A lot of people think while AI is like optimizing workflows, other people are bonding with it.
Yes.
And so it's really this kind of phenomenon of how people have become attached. And so that is something that needs to be addressed because of the way that it's shifting society.
Yeah, again, I come to this point many times in these conversations, and I sort of draw a distinction between how we've typically used Google, and you just put in your search term and out comes whatever
Mhm,
um, comes out of it. Whereas I know myself sometimes fall in the habit of asking politely ChatGPT, would you please do such and such? And when it produces an answer, I say, thank you very much. So there is this weird sense of this sentience on the other side that you
mhm,
don't get with any other technology. So it's very easy to be, I guess the word is duped, or at least have that false sense that there is a conversation with another entity on the other
mhm,
side, where
mhm.
there is a
Yes,
beating heart.
Charles.
Yes.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, people always kind of project like, will AI ever be conscious? But that's not an issue. The issue is how people behave when they believe it already is conscious.
Yes. Uh, you just hit the nail on the head, absolutely. And it also gives you that unconditional positive regard. So it'll tell you, if I ask it a question, it says, "Great question," or "Excellent thought," or I've
Right.
had it like,
Right.
combine information for me because I'm like, I just don't have the time to do this right now. And it's like, good idea. And I'm like, yeah, thanks. Like,
Yeah, you should be able to calibrate the sycophancy. It might be kind of refreshing. No, Charles, that was a completely stupid comment. Just for some balance, just to keep you on your heels a little bit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, Genevieve, you've used this term AI fatigue. What is that? What are the symptoms of that? And what are the implications?
Yeah, I think I coined it off the cuff the last time the 3 of us were talking, so I will
Oh,
share.
it sounded very plausible and like it
Very.
had a real history behind it.
Well, I mean, I would love to take copyright on that, but somebody will probably hear that and publish something, but yeah. So, well, I was thinking of the same way when I kind of fell into AI, so to speak. There is this idea in, around privacy, there's privacy fatigue because we're always giving away our information all the time. Like, there you hear about breaches all the time, stuff like that, where people are just like, whatever, Zuckerberg and, Musk, they already know who I
So
am.
it's like a resignation.
Yeah, exactly. And so
Yeah.
I was thinking the same lines with the AI fatigue. It's just like everywhere. It's like, well, might as well use it. Or, just what is it? Like you beat them or join them. Like if you can't beat them, join them. Sort of that idea. It's like, well, might as well just go with it.
So what are the negative implications or consequences of that? I mean, we've heard, for instance, that with AI, we do less and less critical thinking.
Hmm.
So what are the negative consequences, including but not just as it relates to critical thinking, when we have this kind of fatigue and this resignation, and that becomes an easy default reflex?
Do you me to answer or Rachel?
Go for it,
Um,
Genevieve. I'll
you
weigh
know
in
what?
too.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's like a tag team thing. You're it.
Yeah,
You're
because
it, Rachel.
it's yeah. I mean, there's so much. I mean, it could be like, the MIT study just came out is that people are not using as many critical thinking skills because you can very easily just plug it into AI. It's because it's just easier there and it does take a lot of brain power. People don't realize how much energy you spend thinking. That's why, every time I would study, I'm like, "Ooh, I want some chocolate," because my brain just used up all the glucose. I think it's that, and I think it's, people are either going to not even engage with it because it's just like, "It's too hard, it's too difficult, I'm too tired of hearing about this, I don't wanna deal with it," or they're gonna use it for everything. I think it comes with that sort of ambivalence again. I think the ambivalence will come back up with it.
I
Yeah.
wonder if you could somehow use AI to actually improve critical thinking.
Probably
Yes.
could.
And part of yes, you absolutely can. And part of that is one way, one lens through that is motivational interviewing, which is
Mm,
a particular approach that you can use in different settings to help elicit change talk from someone as opposed to telling them how to change. So
mhm,
if AI adopts something like motivational interviewing, instead of giving advice, which is a straight path to stripping people of their agency and their critical thinking and their decision making. So if you refrain from giving advice and instead you implement eliciting change talk through motivational interviewing, what that looks like is asking more questions. Hey, Charles, I've heard you say this and this. Can you help me understand both sides? Or Charles, you're kind of letting me know about some potential consequences here that are maybe negative. Can you tell me what that might mean in the future for you? All of these types of questions that actually get the user to think for themselves as opposed to just be fed an answer.
mhm. Yes,
Yeah.
and it gives agency back to the person.
Yes. And then what
Um,
you're actually doing is building and developing self-trust, internal self-trust, as opposed to creating dependency on AI.
Before I move to the next question, I want to make sure we exhausted, the consequences of AI fatigue. We talked about critical thinking because that kind of moved us in that direction. Any other thoughts, some of the outcomes, some of the negative outcomes of AI fatigue? Genevieve?
No, I think we covered quite a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Figured
I mean,
I'd
I just
ask.
think there's an erosion of skills that can happen. on a number of different levels: erosion of cognitive faculties, an erosion of relational skills.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying this has to be the case, but it can be. And that's why I feel so strongly, and I think Genevieve as well, about having this cross discipline dialogue so that clinicians can help create and develop and design AI in a way that supports the best interests of the users. So that's a lot of the work that I do, and it's something that I'm pretty passionate about.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, is there anything else to be said coming back to this idea of ambivalence, this vis-a-vis AI adoption? Is there anything further to be said about what business leaders can do to sort of convert this ambivalence into positive adoption in any kind of systematic way? Any best practices,
Yes.
Rachel?
100%. Okay, so essentially, there are two different ways that people can respond to ambivalence. The first is a reactive response, and then a proactive response. So, a reactive response to AI ambivalence is, oh, I feel, this is too much tension. I feel excited and also, concerned, but I don't want to hold all of this cognitive tension. So I'm just going to let one view dominate over the other, meaning you kind of resign and you just say, you know what, I'm just going to be excited about it. I'm going to let go of the fact that I feel concerned, and I'm just going to forget about all of that. And I'm just going to lean into the fact that, we're getting on board and I'm going to get excited about it. We're going to do it. Okay. That's a reactive response. That's like, I just don't know how to handle my ambivalence toward AI. Now, a proactive response, which is what we want to lead people toward, is to actually talk about how they, have these mixed thoughts and feelings toward it. And then you can move into a place of compromise. And so here's what that looks like really practically, Charles, in terms of how leaders can implement this. You sit down, with your teams or your all hand or whatever you're doing, and you say, we're rolling out AI, or we've already rolled out a AI, right? Here's what it looks like. I imagine that many of you in this room likely kind of have some tension about this. Maybe you're excited. I imagine you also might have questions or concerns or hesitations. And the first thing I want to say to you is that's a completely normal experience to have when we're making a big change like that. So, first of all, I get it. I myself, as a leader, even have some of those tensions within me. So, I get it. So, here's what we've done, team. We have set up a anonymous form, and I want you to go to this form sometime later today, and it's anonymous. I want you to fill out, there's a box for what you're excited about, and there's a box for your concerns and your hesitations. Now, when I receive all of this feedback, I cannot guarantee that I'll be able to fix or change all of the concerns. But I can guarantee you that I will read every single one. I can guarantee you that I will listen and hear and respect every single concern and hesitation that you have. And that I will do my best to try and keep all of that in mind so that as we continue rolling out this AI initiative, it will encompass and house and be informed by the things that make you kind of nervous or hesitant about it. So that's where we're at, team. And I'm happy for us now to have an open floor discussion. If you want to share any of these things right now out loud.
Hmm.
Yeah, excellent. Genevieve, thoughts on that? Because I want to come back to this idea of listening. But anything to add to what Rachel just
Oh,
said?
yeah. I mean, listening goes so far. I mean, and like Rachel said, like listening doesn't necessarily mean you're going to agree, but like when people feel heard, like that can diffuse like massively tense situations. So, we talked about this before. So I was a hostage negotiator. They call it crisis negotiation now. And like the first thing they teach you is active listening.
Yeah.
Like that's like you spend 40 hours learning active listening and practicing it, because when people feel heard, even if they don't agree, like working in supermax with, people who 90% of my inmates had murdered somebody. Like, they were not the best of the best. Like, they were the shot callers in gangs. They were very, very violent individuals. And they would get angry about stuff, and I would go to their cells, and I would talk to them, and I would listen to them, and I would do exactly what Rachel was describing. I would say, "Okay, so here's what I hear you say," like, and I would repeat back to them. I would say, "It sounds like you're upset," which is the emotional labeling, and immediately the tension dropped.
Yeah.
And I would say, "I'm so sorry. I can't do anything about that." And 99% of the time be like that they would call me Dr. B because nobody could say my last name. They'd be like, "That's all right, Dr. B. You're good. You're good. Like, thank you for listening to me." And just, I mean, it's amazing just how far that goes. I mean, especially coming from leadership, but they can't come in and be like, "Do this my way or the highway," especially when you're rolling out something like AI, where there are a lot of big feelings about it. And for a lot of, I mean, lots of big feelings. You can't just be like, "Do this or see ya."
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think if I can tag on to that for a minute,
Mhm.
there can be this kind of underlying fear within leadership that if we talk about the fears or hesitations or the negative feelings toward AI, if we bring
Mhm.
that up, it's going to be this never ending explosion that's going to completely derail our AI adoption process. But the opposite is true. If
Yes.
you don't bring this up, if you don't talk about the ambivalence toward AI, you will be stalled, you will be halted, you will be stuck, and you won't know why. But if you bring this up, the truth is, as Genevieve said, when you simply say, I get that you feel nervous and maybe afraid and hesitant to adopt AI in these ways, it diffuses the situation and actually acts as a catalyst toward adoption.
Mhm.
Um, by the way, I don't want to take us too far afield, but ever since first time I met you, Genevieve, been fascinated by this aspect of your background, hostage negotiation. And I said before to the both of you that as a father of a um, young woman, at
Mhm.
some point she was a young girl, and I often likened some of our interactions to being a hostage negotiator, where I was both the hostage negotiator and the hostage. Um,
Mhm.
excuse me. So, so I'm curious, what other aspects of your background as a hostage negotiator have you been able to bring forward into your current work?
Oh my gosh, I don't even think about it much anymore because I've done it for so long. But just like crisis. So most people think like hostage negotiation. They think of like the movies where there's like the lone negotiator. It's actually a whole team of people. Like you're nobody's just one person going to go talk them down. But you know, the ability to make decisions very quickly sometimes, like safe or not safe, and to see the nuance in things and to see things that could lead to being dangerous. Those are the things that I see a lot. And when I first started to get into AI, one of the things I noticed, because even before I did the crisis negotiation, I was in crisis intervention and I did mental health emergency in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So one of the things I noticed is that with the AI, and it's not there yet. It's not that they're not working on it, is that it has no thought of what the laws are, what the mental health laws are, what the commitment laws are, because there are certain things, like if you're a danger to yourself or others due to a mental illness, like there are mental health laws that come into play that you are required to have an evaluation. And so the AI doesn't know where you are, it's going through all this. So that's some of the stuff I see
Yeah.
all the time. And some of the hostage negotiation and clinical practice I do with parents of teenagers, I try to teach them like those things too, because teenagers are, and to also not take things seriously with like everything to heart with teenagers. They're grumpy. Like they're grumpy. They don't get enough sleep. They have to go to school too early. It doesn't fit with their development. They don't get enough sleep. They have a lot of pressure on them. And because they call you bruh, it does not necessarily mean they're being disrespectful. So like it's pick your battles with your kids. And sometimes they just want to be heard too. So it's like, all right, I hear you. Like, and it doesn't mean that you're like, yeah, yes, because I listened to you and heard you out and heard why you want to go to this party. It doesn't mean I'm going to let you go, but at least I gave you the chance to explain why you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Getting
Mhm.
called "bruh" by your kid, yeah, I've not experienced that. That must be kinda interesting.
Yeah.
Anything to share? By the way, I'm tempted to give you equal time, Rachel, and to ask you if you've ever, found the ability to bang out an, aria on demand ever helped you in your work.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. I would say that music is more my own therapy.
Hmm.
It's like, it's my place where I go to completely remove myself from all the stress and the worry and, all of life and the hustle and the bustle. And so really for me, it's like my own little sanctuary place.
I
If you
love
ever get
that.
into the, area of art therapy, music therapy,
Yes, music therapy. Absolutely. Yeah. It's that there's some really fascinating research around music therapy, potentially, also very much so when you're looking at like memory care,
Hmm.
kind of working in that sphere. Music therapy is really powerful there in a number of ways. It is. Yeah.
yeah, excellent. Is there anything else about AI ambivalence that I didn't ask, we didn't cover, that occurs to you that we need to talk about?
I would say just embrace it. You know, I would say don't look at it as a negative. I would look at it as a launching pad to further the adoption process.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it is interesting. Again, you really disabused me of some of my non-clinical notions of what ambivalence is. And yeah, we often do go through life in a variety of scenarios and contexts, trying to navigate our way with these two opposing ideas in our head.
Hmm.
And, again, to a non-clinician, you look at it and you say, well, ambivalence is simply, well, maybe indifference. But
Hmm.
no, it's a struggle. It's a thought process. It's a process, and you got to come, out of it with either one or the other. I'm assuming it to some extent. It should be in most instances. You don't want things to necessarily be zero sum, but maybe in that respect, you kind of do. You ultimately want to come out on the other side, coming out of the with a positive thought. If you're dealing with some fear and trepidation about AI, but you also want to embrace because you see how it can help you in your career and your thinking and all that. You obviously should have some motivation to want to come out of it in a positive way. But I really do appreciate this conversation. But I'd be remiss if we didn't close by talking about the AI therapy bot conference. So if you could tell us a little bit about that, that sounds fascinating. What is that about?
Mhm.
When is it going to be held?
Yeah, I'll start and then I'll let Rachel talk about what she's going to present with us too. So I'm really excited. If you go to shieldthefuture.com, you can see more information about the conference. It's a therapy bots in the future of mental health. We've pulled together a really interesting group of people. Even managed to convince one of my doctorate professors to come talk about like AI and clinical and forensic work. And so I'm going to actually speak with a cyber psychology researcher in the UK. So she and I are going to be early on in the conference, and we're going to talk about how like the gaps in the mental health system, both in the US and in the UK, and how that is opening it up for people to use AI and what that means, how it can be used for good, what are things we should look at. Because again, it's like it's so easy to say like everything's black or white, but there's so much nuance when it comes to this. And so we want to talk about that, like where we can see the positives and where we can see it picking up the slack. Because there aren't enough psychologists, there aren't enough therapists, it's really hard to get treatment. It's hard to get emergency treatment. There aren't enough beds. So what do we do? And so that's what like Carolyn, she was on the last podcast. She and I are going to
Yes.
talk together about that. And
Yeah.
then Rachel has so graciously, I'm so excited that you're going to speak as well. And do you want to talk about what you're going to talk
Yeah.
about?
This is actually how Genevieve and I met. is kind of talking about this conference and meeting over this because I saw it. I reached out. I thought this is amazing. I love this, and it's just been this beautiful thing that Genevieve has, been part of creating. And so,
Mhm.
um, I what I'm excited about is they're also bringing in a technologist who's building AI to really talk about what does ethical AI even mean? What does it look like? How do you build it in more of a technical sense? So, Brian Muse from Shift Health is going to be there looking at that, and I'm going to be kind of ending the conference with a bit of how do we move forward collaboratively? How do we have these cross-discipline dialogues? How do we, really create robust systems by leaning on each other and gaining each other's, expertise? And so I'm looking forward to it and feel, honored that I'm invited to do so. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm so glad, and yeah, and we have, like, Birmingham City University has
Yeah.
been very helpful with us as well, and so they have a cyber psychology PhD over there, and
Yeah.
they've been really helpful, so I'm excited, like, it just came together organically. It was one of those things that I was like, "This needs to be done," and just boop, 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 and got people to do it. And one of the other ones I'm really excited about is I have a psychologist, and she's also going to be presenting with a student, and they're talking about what it's like to train now,
Yes.
like in the age of AI. Because so she's doing her residency right now or postdoc, and there's a student there who's still,
Well,
hasn't finished the doctorate program yet,
yeah.
and what that's like and how that's incorporating it in. And so I'm really excited for it. I'm stoked. And it's on October 22nd. And it's free, it's virtual. And if you can't make it, we're going to put everything up on YouTube afterwards.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I tell you, it's particularly exciting for me to have two such powerhouse impresarios,
Well, thank you.
given
Yeah.
Rachel's Health Collective or AI Mental Health Collective and this initiative. Very impressive. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you.
I appreciate this, guys. This has been a real fun, interesting, insightful conversation. AI ambivalence. I myself learned quite a bit, and I really do appreciate you spending the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.